so it might make sense. Any comments, questions, any? Yes, sir.
Hi, real quick, it's all in the family.
Say that again?
With the case study, it's all in the family,
Yes,
where can I find that, or,
it's in week 5.
oh, week 5?
Yeah, wait, yeah, the case study's not due to week 5, but we put the groups together in week 3. Just so
Right,
you
but
guys can get,
the
the actual, yeah, the actual assignment is not till week 5, yeah.
Okay,
So I'm probably gonna open it up early this week. I was thinking about doing it last week, but I got caught up with some of the stuff, so.
just because the learning engagement 4 asked us to write on it.
About what? What does it say exactly?
It says, learning engagement after carefully studying the case, it's all in the family. Please answer the following
Yes.
questions.
No, ignore that. Is that the LE?
The LE, yeah. LE4.
So- Let's try it. Let me see something real quick. Let's see. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Let me see what we got here. Oh, no, this is different. Yeah, this is different. This is on page 274 of the book.
Oh,
Yeah, the case study, and you'll see, it'll say case study or whatever the case may be, in different areas of the course, because we'll be looking at different case studies, but the specific case study for week 5, that's a PDF that's attached already. That has nothing to do with that, so I apologize if it's confusing. Yeah, see, right there, that link right there, that's the case study for week 5. Yep, but good question. I'm glad you cleared that up, so. Anybody else have anything? No questions or nothing? All right. All right, nothing else? Good, all right, cool. All right, I haven't got a chance to get around to grading the title justifications of yet. Got some other stuff going on, but I will get that to you as soon as possible. But all in all, looks like I took a quick skim over it. Everybody did okay. All right, so unless you got some burning desire, some kind of burning urge to get your results back quickly, you got some time. All right, so hopefully I'll have it done by the end of the week, and you can start, kind of formulating your plan. Hopefully you're not waiting on title justification. All right, hopefully your topic is appropriate and it fits an HR themed focus. All right, and so you shouldn't be waiting on me to really start thinking about, okay, how am I gonna put this paper together and that kind of thing. Important that take a look at the APA manual, as I keep telling you. There's a bazillion templates out there. Okay, if you go to Google, you put paper template, you're gonna find so many, it's gonna be overwhelming. You're not gonna know which one to pick. My advice is to get the APA manual, whether it be electronic or hardback or whatever, paperback, and follow the format that's in there, okay? Because that format is the accepted and adopted format for the papers, and you really can't go wrong. If something comes up and there's a grading issue or if there's some issue with format and structure, you have the APA manual fall back on. Say, Dr. Case, I use the APA manual like you suggested, and whatever is in there, it pretty much, that's the rules I follow, unless there's something else. So I would suggest that you use the APA manual as a guide to structure your paper, as far as like the title page, the introduction. There's no need for an abstract in this paper, in your final paper, okay? I know most papers come with that, but at this level and what we're doing, we don't need an abstract. So don't worry about that for your final paper. You're not doing any real research, right? So just to emphasize that again, you're not doing any real research here, okay? The research you're doing on your paper is primarily based on secondary data, which is your literature review and maybe some other external resources that you found elsewhere to support your, your thesis or whatever the case may be, but you're not doing any surveys, you're not asking any questions, you're not doing any interviews, okay? There's a process for that, all right? There's a whole thing you gotta go through, what's the International Health Organization or whatever it's called. There's a process though, all right, because you have to get approval to do research because there's different groups of people that are disadvantaged, and we don't want there's an ethical thing about doing research that has to be given a thumbs up, and the school has to know that you're conducting research because you're a student here. So there'll be no research in this particular class, right? If you want to do research, by all means, when you get done here, apply for your doctorate, and you can do all the research you like, okay? No research on your own, tell you the truth, but for the most part, the research that's done here in the name of the school or for the school is sanctioned and has to go through approval process, okay? All right, nothing else, huh? Anybody do anything fun last week? This weekend? Where?
PV.
PB, okay, yeah, PB's all right. A little too young for me, but all right.
I mean, the college kids ain't there now, in summer.
Yeah, they still too young for me. All right,
Oh, yeah.
I'm okay with PB, I go PB once in a while, but it's not my place, can't handle getting drunk and then 4 o'clock in the morning, in and out.
Uber.
No, that's not the part. No, I'm
Oh.
talking about the rest of the stuff that comes after you drink, or the
Oh,
pain.
yeah, the next day.
Yeah, the hangover. Can't deal with all that. Too much. Anybody go to Del Mar for the opening day? For the races, horse race? No?
You went?
No, I ain't. It was $90. I'm not paying $90 to go to opening day. So what? I can sweat in my suit, fancy outfit. No, I'm good. I'll go another time. Comic-Con this week. Nobody, who's been to Comic-Con before? No? Oh, you should go. You should definitely go to Comic-Con. Okay, this week, just go downtown and just walk around, and all the people watching you will ever need in your whole life. Okay, it's very interesting. Go down there, you might see some folks. They're supposed to be really, really heavy on the celebrities and the stars this year, some of the panels. So get in there. I wouldn't advise trying to get inside.
Yeah,
It's
sold out.
they sold out, and the tickets are outrageous anyway. All right. But yeah, check it out, go downtown, walk around, check out the people, talk to some superheroes and whatnot, just go and get in the vibe and see what kind of Comic-Con, things are going on, and the impact really about Comic-Con, and the economic impact and the social impact and the cultural impact Comic-Con has on San Diego, some of the things that go on around there. All right. Okay, so there's no questions. All right, we'll go straight into it, right? So this week we're gonna talk about recruiting, okay? Recruiting probably one of the more nuanced aspects of HR, right? And one of the areas that probably the company is probably more involved in than anything else, as far as some of the other things HR does, right? Compliance, managing of the benefits and that kind of thing. The leaders care about that, but they don't really care as much, right? The hiring managers and people like that, they care, but not as much. When it comes to recruiting, that's near and dear to their heart, because in many instances, the recruiting requirement is coming from the hiring managers, right? It's coming from the departments or, the leads that need, a certain skill set, right? And so they're gonna come to you and say, hey, we need an engineer. And you're gonna go, no problem, right? What kind of engineer do you need? What duties are they gonna be filling? Then the HR will check to see what the budget is like for engineers. We'll check internally, how much do we pay engineers? We'll check externally, what's the market calling for engineers, that kind of thing, right? But then, as far as the hiring managers go and the people that, really have a vested interest in it, they want to know that they're getting the top quality person that they can for the amount of money the company's willing to spend, okay? And so it's always an issue for companies where they're trying to acquire talent, right? Because the whole aim really as a company is to take whatever resource I have and get the best talent I have, right? But then after I get them, right, I have to retain them, right? Which is probably the harder part. How do I keep them in the company, right? How do I keep them engaged into the work and loving the company when I really don't have control over any of the other really, colleagues or people that work there? The only thing I have control over is sort of, my little box or my little lane about, whatever it is I do, right? As a manager or leader, but at the higher levels, leaders worry about, how are we recruiting and how are we retaining the folks, right? Because all that equates to what? What does all that recruiting and all that stuff equate to for a company at the higher levels? If you're looking at it from a strategic standpoint, what is recruiting and some of this other stuff? What does that equal really? What does it mean, I guess?
I mean, profit,
Profit, when you say profit, what do you mean?
if you're recruiting individual talent people who can do a certain job or skill set.
Okay.
Hopefully bring more profit into. the
Okay,
company.
okay, all right. So you're along the right lines, right? Companies looking at how can you add value to what we already have, right? Are you going to bring a book of business that's going to increase our revenue, right? And ultimately increase our profit, right? Are you gonna bring some kind of asset that's tangible that we can monetize, okay? But for companies, aside from the aspect of people adding value, what really is they think about is how much is it gonna cost me to recruit, okay? How much money are we spending to hire someone, then onboard them, train them, then try to retain them? And then what happens if they decide after a year they wanna leave? Guess what? I gotta go through that process all over again, right? That's all money for companies, a lot of money, okay? If you look at a typical job offer, if you're talking about being in, kind of a senior position, sort of, right? Your salary may be in the hundreds of thousands, right? 110, 120, whatever, 150,000. But in addition to that, they'll offer you a moving allowance, right? Relocation assistance. They might offer you a bonus, right? All that stuff starts to add up for one person, right? Imagine you're hiring a bunch of people every year, every month, really. You're hiring at least 2 or 3 people. And it's costing you, on average, at least $25,000 to $30,000 a month on just that. And that's if they are domestic, right? It's if they're US citizens. If they're not US citizens and they need a work visa, not it's on the I-25. All right, they need an I-25. Now, I-25 basically says, hey, United States government, I'm going to sponsor this person from another country. Same thing as the F1 visas, sort of, for students here. Same thing, I-25, right? I'm gonna sponsor this person. They're gonna live in the United States. We're going to pay, I think at one point it was 25,000 and maybe more than that the company has to pay to the government for the process and they get the permit. And that's pretty much every couple of years that they have to renew that. Until the person gets citizenship or until the person finds another job that's gonna sponsor them, right? But all that stuff is money, right, at the end of the day. So companies really take recruiting seriously and try to make sure that, hey, we don't, spend exorbitant amount of money. Unfortunately, recruiting is definitely one of those places where money gets spent that, it's somewhat not necessary, okay? Because within recruiting, it's sort of like catering or trying to impress someone, right, to get them to join your team, okay? Look at any recruiting effort done by any, public entity, okay? It's almost like, hey, I take them out to the fancy restaurant, all right? I get a limo to pick them up. I, give them a couple gifts. I take them to certain things, right? All that stuff starts to add up, okay? And recruiters, when they're really trying to get a high quality talent, they will go to no ends, right? To make sure that they have this person that they want for this company. Because a recruiter may very well have a contract with the government to supply the government with a certain amount of people or a certain type of skill set, right? that government contract, right? Let's just say I'm gonna pay you $100,000. If I, if you get hired, right? How much you think that government contract is worth to that recruiter? How much do you think the government is paying that recruiter? To get that particular person?
About that?
Ish.
Oh.
25 grand, it's nothing.
For one
We're
person.
talking about the government now.
Oh,
From the government, say it again.
For that one person? Before like.
No, just in general, I have a contract with the government and I'm supposed, was that
Millions?
millions?
oh,
Yeah.
even,
You talking about one person?
yeah, one person.
No, I'm talking about if I have a general contract with the government saying, hey, look, you're my hiring team, right? If I need somebody, I'm gonna come to you, right? Anybody ever heard of Booz Allen? That's what Booz Allen does, okay? Orion, Rubik's. That's what these companies do, right? And so they get these contracts. And, Booz Allen specifically, they got in trouble for this before, so, Booz Allen, typically the contracts would be, let's just say $400,000 per person. You get $100,000 of that. Guess who gets the rest?
Okay.
Booz Allen. Okay? So it's critical for them to be really active and to really make sure that they get the people that they want, because they want to maintain the contract with the government because that's a very lucrative revenue stream, right? Secondly, they want to make sure they provide the quality and the talent that the government's looking for, okay? Because those particular jobs lead to other things that the government's interested in, whether it be here or overseas, right? There's other bigger initiatives going on, right? But these recruiting efforts are, a lot of money is spent on them because there's a lot of people that are interested in getting the best and the brightest, right? And at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's a very competitive market out there. People are vying for talent all the time, and you may not think that there's a lot of opportunities out there, but there are, right? We just happen to be in a little bubble, right, where we all are pursuing something higher, right? We're trying to all get better. Everybody's here to pursue their master's degree, and it may seem like everybody here is gonna be vying for a job, at the same time, right? But if you go out into the general population, you'll be one of 10, one of 20, right? Actually looking for a job and not, and there'll be so many jobs out there, right? That you won't, like, the companies are like, okay, we need to find the best person for it, and we don't have enough people. Enough people that don't apply, right? Because within that whole recruiting process, you're gonna have people that are not qualified at all, qualified, right? Overly qualified, and then superbly qualified, okay? So basically, you don't want basically two, maybe 3 out of 4 of them, actually you don't want, right? I don't want the guy that's not qualified, because that's pointless, right? So that person's gone. The person that's qualified, good, right? The person that's somewhat qualified or expertly qualified, cool, but how much are you gonna cost me? And the person that's superbly qualified, probably don't want them because too much stuff that goes with that, right? It's like sometimes if I apply for a job and they see PhD, okay, chuck me. Too qualified, you overqualified. It's gonna disrupt the section, it's gonna disrupt the company. We can't afford you. You literally, you will hear, and the master's is pretty much the degree that most business folks have, right? Because anything above that, people start to get intimidated. Like they don't want you around, you're too smart, or you, whatever the case, that's what they think, right? But we know that's not always the case, right? But at the same time, you don't have a huge pool of people that you would think you have, because you feel like, oh, I have all these qualified people. Not really, right? When applications go in, you'd be surprised at the stuff you see that is not, like, you're like, okay, like you don't fit at all. But, as they say, you gotta be in it to win it, right? So people, you never know, somebody might take a chance on you, right? But for companies, really it's about talent acquisition, right? Which is done through recruiting, right? We're trying to get as much talent as we can to apply, and then we just keep them in a big pool, And if we need them, we'll tap into it, right? So you may very well apply for a job, or had applied for a job last year, didn't hear a thing, and then tomorrow they'll call you because that position opened up. And so they go to the repository and say, look, who do we have in the talent pool that's already put an application in that qualifies for the job that we want to screen and kind of bring in for interview? And they kind of go through it and look at it and go, well, okay, bring blah, 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 and they'll call you, be like, hey, are you still interested? Are you looking for a job? We'd like for you to come in to an interview, right? That happens quite often, right? Most companies are very slow going. They're not very quick with, making decisions about hiring. And depending on the economy and what's going on, companies, they tread lightly with hiring, right? Because we don't want to hire and then just to fire or to lay off or to furlough, whatever the case may be, right? We don't want to do that. So companies take their time, especially if it's a position that it's sensitive or it's very, very high stress or high responsibility or high vis. Okay, this is why there's a small amount of CEOs to pick from. Okay, when you talk about CEOs and people that are gonna run major corporations, it's very incestual, right? They all know each other. It's probably like 25, maybe 30 people in the world that could probably fit CEO jobs, right? Unless you're an entrepreneur and you start your own company, you kind of move up and you grow with your company, you learn things with your company. Most CEOs know each other. It's a small, tight-knit group. And then once you get in, you pretty much get tossed all over the place. Like, hey, okay, you CEO here, you can be CEO here, you can be CEO here. It doesn't matter, right? Because the CEO is kind of like managing the resources and trying to pick a particular direction. And some CEOs have certain particular skill sets that they're good at as far as like maybe cutting companies or reducing the company or growing it, whatever it is that the problem is with the company as to why they fired the last CEO, okay? But an important aspect of the company, right? So again, we're just trying to make sure that we have enough people within the talent pool that we can pick from to make sure that we can keep the business operations going, okay? All right, so now when we look at the talent, right, and the things that we are concerned about, all right? The quality of talent, all right, probably the most important thing, right? We want to make sure that we are getting someone who's competent, who understands their job, and also is able to learn and adapt, okay? Things change, especially nowadays for people that are more in the tech, and just business in general, things change very rapidly, okay? This is, we easily saw right now last week, President Biden dropped out. He's not gonna be, go for re-election. Kamala Harris is up next and she's probably gonna get the nomination. That changes a lot of things for a lot of companies and their approach to how they're gonna do business, what they're gonna do with their money, where they're gonna put their money. Huge difference, okay? So who are they gonna hire matters, okay? Because, and the talent they hire matters because with one president or one person, that person's focus may not necessarily be on diversity, where another person's focus may be on diversity, right? And so if I'm doing more of a diversity push, I may look at things differently than I would if I'm not doing a diversity push, okay? So that all depends on the higher levels or just what's going on with your company or the environment in general, okay? So quality of talent, extremely important, right? Because again, we want top-notch people. Quantity of talent is important, but I prefer quality over quantity, but there are times when you do need quantity over quality, right? Mostly manual labor, right? Things that require a large amount of, I guess, horsepower, for lack of a better term, right? Things that require a lot intensive manual labor are usually pretty much high in numbers, right? So if you are, at McDonald's or even, I'm trying to think of another company, any company really, for the most part that is at the lower levels, the quantity of talent is extremely important. And you want to have as many hands as you probably can get your hands on, to have within your recruiting pool, okay? Business strategies, again, it goes back to, okay, how are we doing our business, how are we operating, whether it be domestically or internationally, right? Another, thing to look at. If we are planning on diminishing our role here in the United States and making a bigger footprint overseas, what type of people do we need to hire? should we hire the people here or should we hire them in the host country? And that makes a huge difference as far as like, okay, what business strategy are we gonna go with, right? If there's a pool of talent in a certain place and we want to kind of set up shop there, maybe we should recruit from there and not necessarily recruit from the United States because our business strategy is looking to focus really on Asia, right? Trying to grow that market and that, whatever the case may be, right? Labor market dynamics, right? Another important aspect of hiring, right? Probably more of the more important economic indicators, all right? Looking at the market and trying to realize, is this a good labor market, a bad labor market, right? Are salaries sufficient? Do we have enough skilled people within the workforce in order to accommodate all the jobs, right? When we look at the labor market now, what's does anybody know what are some of the most I guess the jobs that are not that have huge vacancies? Anybody know?
Teachers,
Teachers, yep. Yep, teachers, what else?
Tech.
Tech, for sure, right? Tech is for sure. What's that? Healthcare, right? Healthcare is number one, right? There's a huge shortage of nurses, funny enough, and doctors. Right? And you wonder like, why is that, right? Everybody knows how the medical schools here work and all that kind of thing, right? Law schools and all that, right? If you don't, all that stuff is controlled. Okay, there's a certain amount of students that go in per year for medical school and law school because it makes it easier for the schools to provide, so they say, level of education, or quality of education, all right? So we have a shortage in that field, right? Tech is another animal on its own. Tech, I don't think will ever actually close that gap because there's not enough people that are really interested in tech. They like to use it, but they don't want to try to understand it. And it's, take it from me, it's a very, depending on what kind of tech you're doing, it can be very complicated, right? But cybersecurity is the kind of the top thing right now, with AI, machine learning, all that stuff followed close second, right? And they kind of partner or kind of correlated very highly because basically you need cybersecurity to protect your computer from people trying to rob you with the algorithms that are out there. Okay, so labor market definitely determines how I recruit. Right, for instance, now inflation is high, right? They're trying to get inflation down, but until we can get the interest rates down, but we can't do that because the labor market, the job report keep coming in strong, right? Everybody has a job that wants one, okay? Everybody's making good money, right? People are spending money, right? Contradictory to what, we may see or hear, right? People are spending money, jobs are good, everything's okay from the labor standpoint, okay? And so interest rates are not gonna go down because inflation is staying up pretty much pretty steady. It's gone down a little bit, so we might see some reprieve here next year, okay? So labor market dynamics definitely play a role, right? Time limits, all right? Time limits are important because some hires are very specific to a certain job, right? We may not need you for a whole 5 years or whatever. We may just need you for a year and a half, okay? And also, we had this project slated to go, but because of, this whole now upheaval with the, presidential election, that kind of thing, we're gonna put that project on the back burner. And so we're not hiring anyone for that particular project. So come check us out next year, once the, elections are over, and we figure out, exactly what we're gonna do with this project, all right? So time limits definitely play a huge role, in recruiting and, kind of looking at, the hires time limit also, right? Or time frame. Usually for most companies that are really looking to do a big hiring push, when you think that they do their big hiring pushes?
Right for the holidays.
Right before the holidays, yeah, kind of sort of, okay. Just bump up the staff for the holiday season, yeah. When else do you think companies do big hiring pushes?
At the start of the fiscal year,
Start of fiscal year, nah, more like the end, maybe the fiscal year, but definitely fiscal year plays a role, yeah. When else? Anything they do big pushes. And it definitely affect all of you guys.
Summertime.
Elections?
Summertime? No, not elections, we do not do elections. Why summertime?
Everyone graduating school.
Everybody graduates, right? They come usually during the spring, right? April, March, April. You see big pushes because all the new graduates are coming out, right? And so we're trying to get our hands on all these newly minted bachelor's, master's, doctorate level people, all right? Medical school folks, right? Trying to get our hands on them. So we will do these big pushes during April, March, you kind of like, okay, hey, what are your plans? What do you intend on doing? Have you thought about, this particular industry or that particular industry? You see all these job fairs and all that stuff, right? Although we don't have them here, I do recommend that you do go to job fairs at SDSU, USD, UC San Marcos, go to all of them. They're all open to any student, right? Just go check them out, take your resume. I have seen people get hired on the spot, get internships on the spot, okay? But they do big pushes during those times because of that reason, all right? And probably one of the more important aspects is the financial limits, right? How much money do we have, okay? So there's a difference between HR and what we consider manpower, all right? Does anybody know the difference between HR and manpower?
Manpower is the amount of work you can do, like with everyone combined.
Yeah, no, that's true, but think of it from a strategic level. Right, think about the function of HR and the function of what you think manpower is,
Okay,
and what's the difference between the two?
HR writes the instructions and manpower drops a hammer.
When you say drop a hand, what do you mean drop a hand?
Like they do the work, they do like, they're directing everything and they're,
Probably the other way around. The other way around, all right? So manpower is the strategic aspect of HR, right? How many people do we need to actually do this job, right? What skill sets do you need for this company, right? From a general view, we need engineering skills, we need tech skills, we need managerial skills, we need mathematical skills, or whatever the case may be, right? But the biggest difference between HR and manpower, right, is the money. Okay? Manpower dictates how much money you have to spend on HR. Okay? And so manpower may say, look, we need 10 engineers. Okay? Manpower says, we have enough money for 7. All right, that's what we got. So HR, we have 7 slots, payable slots at this level that we're going to pay, okay? So that's the budget. Now, it may or may not get used, whatever the case may be, but HR knows, all right, we have these many slots at this price point, right? Manpower handles the money. Manpower handles the actual staffing organization of the company, right? So this is where the CEO and COO and everybody kind of sits down and says, look, how many people do you need to run your unit? All right, and what skill sets do you need? Do you really need 3 engineers? Can you do it with 1 civil engineer, 1 electrical, 1, mechanical, right? Or do you need 5, right? Okay, I need all 5. Okay, great, you need all 5. So boom, we're gonna register at 5 at this price point, all right? And that's for the whole company. All right, that's what we got for the whole company, so just be ready, okay? So manpower is more of the, strategic arm of HR at the higher levels. They control the money. They tell you exactly, hey, for those that were in the military, understands TOs or table of organization, all right? Companies have it too, right? But table of organization, right? How's my company set up? All right, CEO, COO, CFO, CIO, CTO, all those particular Cs, the C-suite, those are things I have to have. right? Have to have them, right? So we have a $30 million budget for that. Okay, C-suite's done. What else do we got left? All right, we have another $100 million in payroll this year. Okay, let's spread it out. How many sections or departments do we have, right? And then within each department, what is each function, right? Of the department, right? And this is where the job analysis kind of comes through that we talked about last week, right? Because each hiring manager of each section is going to have to go to their boss, department head, and say, look, I need this, okay? Now, normally that happens before the company's even formed, right? Because the CEO, COO, those folks kind of know like kind of what they need to make the company run. But then as the company starts to grow, you know, they hire people on, but they're not really in control of any of that, right? They kind of behind, you know, behind the scenes or doing other things, right? And this is where you get companies growing too fast, right? And the people lose control, right? Have you ever seen that before? The company's growing so fast, we can't hire fast enough. We can't keep up with demand. Okay, we can't keep up with the orders, right? It's kind of a good problem to have to a certain point until you really can't keep up with the orders. And then what you get is disgruntled customers who don't come back to your particular site or don't buy anything from you because they say you can't deliver, right? So I'd rather that than have an under. But at the same time, when you look at your budget, right, and say, okay, each department, we have this much money. What skill sets are we willing to spend the money on? Okay, boom, manpower decides that, you know, coordination with everybody else. And that's what gets stuck at manpower, okay? And then now, how that correlates to recruiting is that me as a recruiter, I can go and say, hey, we have an engineering position. It offers this much money. The range is from 95 to 105. Are you interested? Put an application in and we'll see where that goes, right? But once we get to a certain point, and we may get to some, we have 7 slots open, but we realize that 5 is enough. We're not hiring anymore, right? We're done. Okay, and that money may get shifted elsewhere, right? That's why it's important that, you know, with the financial limits, that you understand what they are. Because sometimes when you're hiring, you may not be able to hire or afford really the best qualified person. You may be able to afford the person that's fresh out of college, or maybe has a year or 2 experience, and is going to be learning on the job just as well as you are, right? They don't have that much experience, they don't understand everything, right? Because experience equates to dollars, again, okay? The more experience you have, the more money you can command, all right? And companies don't want to do that, all right? There's a couple of things going for you that aren't gonna work well for you, right? If you're experienced, you're probably older, right? Companies don't want that, right? They want, second, a young person who can come in and be molded, right? If I can get 2 college students for 100,000, vice 1 experienced person for 100,000, I'm gonna take the 2 college students, okay, over the 1 person with experience. Because eventually, those 2 college students are gonna catch up. They're gonna need to know, they're gonna know what they need to know to do the job, right? All right, and I've got them at 50,000, and I can incrementally, you know, give them their raises and promote them, all right? And most importantly, what do they bring to the table?
Fresh set of eyes.
Fresh set of eyes, what else?
New perspective.
New perspective,
Longevity.
longevity, innovation, technology. They bring a whole bunch of stuff that old people can't, you know, older folks can't bring to the table, right? Maybe they can, but younger folks tend to be more in tune with what's going on with society. What are the culture and societal trends that are really captivating people, really getting people to spend their money, right? You know what gets people to spend their money, right? Who has Twitter here? Who does? Nobody,
mean
everybody.
X?
I mean, X, yeah, X. Thank you, Kate. X, yeah, who has X here?
I do.
I guess I should ask, who doesn't have X? 1, 2, 3? Okay, 3, all right. I don't have X either, Twitter, whatever it is, okay? I don't have any of that stuff, right? So half the time, I don't know what's going on, right?
X will tell you.
Huh?
X will tell you.
I know X will tell me, but X will tell me a lot of other things too, I don't know.
You can block that out.
Yeah. Too much time, too much work, too much stress, all right? I will admit that I have very funny videos that my friends like to send me, but aside from that, I don't got time for it, right? So, but you guys are on it, all right? The ones that have X or Snapchat or whatever platform, TikTok, whatever, right? And you see the trends that are happening, right? And then what you do is you bring that to the workplace, like, hey, boss, you know, I saw this, and I was like, what is that? Like, oh, this is coming. This is like the thing. Like, really? Like, okay, well, let's develop it. Let's see what's going on. If it's a real thing, do some research on it, give me a paper, and then outline it and see, you know, what we can do about it, right? Amazon has a brand specifically for that, where they let the employees come in with their ideas, and if it's a great idea, they'll fund it, and it's their own company, all right? Amazon still owns a piece, but it's your company, and you can leave Amazon if you want, you can stay with the company, but they will fund your program for you, right? Because you guys will come with some new stuff that people aren't thinking about, or maybe they are thinking about it, just don't know how to approach it, or whatever the case may be, right? But understanding really, you know, from the higher level, as far as, okay, why would I, you know, want to hire younger folks, less experienced? Is because I don't have to pay them as much, and I know they're hungry, all right? They're eager, they're ambitious, right? Whereas older folks who, you know, maybe a little more complacent, a little lazier, not necessarily thinking about, you know, innovation, that kind of thing. And there's one more area where getting a younger person over older person is advantageous for company.
They're more able to like get molded by the culture and everything.
Yeah, I mentioned that, to get molded, right? They're malleable, right? I can kind of put them in one direction or the other. But there's a financial aspect to this that the companies also are concerned about. Aside from the salary, what thing does the company take in consideration when they're looking at younger people? Insurance. Okay, insurance. Do I want to hire a 50-some-year-old who's prone to God knows what, or a 20-some-year-old who's just now learning how to use their body, right? Who's just now figuring things out, who's healthy, right? Who doesn't have as many battle scars as an older person, right? Because that's the truth, right? When I was in my 20s, I didn't have any problems. All right, now in my 50s is a whole different ballgame, right? And so companies look at that and go, oh my goodness, like this dude probably gonna have a heart attack next year. Guess what? We gotta pay for it, right? His wife gonna get sick, I'm sure. We gonna have to pay for it, okay? As compared to 21, 22-year-old, 24-year-old, it's just you. You're probably not thinking about having kids at the moment, right? Probably a couple of years down the road, like, yeah, when I get to about 30, maybe 27, 28, I'll start thinking about kids and that kind of thing in the family. So you're free for them to send you wherever they want to send you, all right? And just you're adventurous. You want to try everything. Send me to China. I don't care. Send me to Russia. I don't, whatever, right? You don't care, all right? So it's an important aspect of recruiting when it comes down from the organizational and strategic standpoint that companies think about, because that adds up to a lot of money, right? Anybody been to the hospital recently? Or seen a doctor recently that had to pay out of pocket? All right, I don't pay for my medical stuff, but I paid the copay, it was $30. And I was like, that's a lot for copay, right? And I was just visiting the doctor. I wasn't getting anything done. I was there for a little follow-up. I can imagine what it costs if you actually gotta go in there for something and then get the medication that goes with it, right? It's expensive. So companies start to think about that stuff. They take it out your paycheck, right? So on average, most people will pay about, if a family of four, they'll pay about $1,500 to $2,000 a month in insurance. If you want good insurance, yeah, okay, you're gonna pay that much, right? Ask anybody that has kids and is working, it's expensive, right? And so companies look at that when they're hiring and think about, okay, do we have the financial capacity to support certain things, right? And again, don't forget, the company has to have more than 15 people. If it's less than 15 people, the company doesn't have to provide any of that stuff, right? But once you get to 15 and above, then you gotta start thinking about 401k, insurance policies, benefits, workman's comp, compliance. You gotta think about all that stuff, right? As an organizational, from an organizational financial standpoint, right? And do we have enough money to do all these things for this level of employee, right? We may need to cut some staff, or maybe we can't hire as much, and you may have 4 jobs, right? Till the company gets up and running and is going, if it's a startup. If it's an established company, and they have everything already in line, that's still a huge chunk of their operating costs, right, is insurance, right? And so you start seeing the switch here soon enough. Well, you already see it with 401ks and retirement plans, right? Companies no longer promise you pensions or retirement funds. Now it's on you, all right? You're gonna give you a 401k, you're gonna contribute, we'll match, and when you leave, you can take it with you. We don't owe you anything, you don't owe us anything. You walk out the door, right? So you become your own retirement manager, right? And 80%, 90% of us probably suck at that, right? Trying to figure out where do I put the money for it to grow, right? Because there's certain things that certain access the company would have as an entity that you're not gonna have, right? You're not gonna get the best rate at the Vanguard fund, right? You're not gonna go to Eli Lilly, not Eli, but JP Morgan as an individual and say, hey, I want this particular retirement fund, I wanted to do this at this rate. Companies can do that. They can go in because they're bringing in millions of dollars. Say, hey, look, I need this package. I want to be able to do this, this, and this for my employees. I need this particular Vanguard A, not Vanguard C. Yeah, that all that other stuff, right? So all these things are behind the scene things that HR deals with. All right. Okay, so back to business strategy, right? So having the business strategy in mind and understanding, okay, what is our long-term goals is really critical for hiring and recruiting, all right? If we are going in a certain direction, let's just say, everybody familiar with Netflix, right? Okay, what was Netflix before it was Netflix?
DVD service.
Yeah, which one? Redbox.
No,
Okay,
isn't Redbox, it was 2 separate ones, because Redbox was something else. Like Redbox was Redbox, and then they're just now getting like, they just went bankrupt.
Redbox, so, okay, so what happened is Netflix, Redbox is Netflix. Now, so what they did is they split the company. Sort of,
Yeah.
they made a separate entity because of that,
Yeah,
right? Because it was dragging them down. So Redbox is now Netflix, right? And so when they made the transition from Redbox to Netflix, what do you think they needed to do to make that transition happen?
re-establish themselves as an entity.
Yeah, they definitely did that later on, all right? But it's from a hiring perspective. Think about a recruiting hiring perspective, right? Trying to build up that team, right? Redbox, as you know, it's just a box on the street with DVDs in it. You put your money in it spits out a DVD. You take it home, you watch it, you bring it back, you slip it back into the machine, and that's that, right? That pretty much low maintenance. Nobody's there. It's really no cost to the company, really, except for the maintenance of the Redbox itself, which probably has one mechanism in it. Take money, release DVDs. It probably does it through the same algorithm, same port, right? Okay, so think about the hiring that they had to do from Redbox to get to Netflix. Okay, who do you think they're hiring, or what are they hiring? What skill sets are they bringing on?
Software engineers,
Software engineers, what else?
tech support.
Tech support. They're bringing the whole thing. They're bringing the whole thing. Right? Offices, they got everything, right? And we're not even talking about the technology part of it, right? We're just talking about the admin part of it. Right? We're not talking about, like you said, the software engineers, the IT people, the marketing people, the people that deal with, distribution and how do we, who supplied Netflix? Where did Netflix get their movies from when they first started?
Blockbuster.
I said Netflix, not Redbox. Where did Netflix get their movies from when they first started?
Redbox?
The streaming side of it.
Oh,
The streaming side of it. Where did they get their movies from when they first started streaming?
Is it a movie Disney?
Disney. Yep. Okay. Okay, Netflix got all their stuff, all that content from Disney. All right, and so guess what happened? Disney was like, man, you people making money.
Oh,
yeah.
Where Disney Plus comes from, okay? Why am I gonna give you all my good stuff when I can make the money myself, right? Okay, and this is why Netflix had a dilemma for a while because not a while. I think they saw it coming and was like, okay, this relationship with Disney is not gonna last too long because it's Disney. Disney can do what they want, when they want it, how they want it, okay? So Netflix started coming and say, you know what? We need to start to think about how do we get our own content, right? And Disney eventually came around, was like, look, Netflix, we like you, but not that much, okay? So we're gonna take our own thing and we're gonna build our own Disney Plus and we're gonna be your competition now by being your partner, all right? And so Netflix had to go in a different direction with content and they've done pretty good, right? They went out, they spent lots of money, right? Initially to get some of these big superstars to produce their movies on these little projects that you would never see in the movie theater, pop up on Netflix, right? Robert De Niro and Al Pacino in The Irishman or whatever it was, right? There's a whole bunch of Netflix originals, okay? If you notice on Netflix, there's also a lot of Swedish movies, okay? A lot of Swedish stuff that have voiceovers and that kind of thing, right? So Netflix found a way in which to tap into content, right? But it went all over the place to go get it, right? And it's done pretty good, okay? But the real question here, or the real thing that I want you to focus on is the switch from Redbox to Netflix, okay? And the manpower and the HR that it takes, right? To not only get that set up, but then the infrastructure wise, but then getting the people, right? What kind of hiring frenzy do we need to have to get this thing up and rolling? Because we're not only against, time constraints because Disney's trying to catch up with us, right? We have the market share right now, but eventually we're probably gonna start losing it, right? We also have a financial constraint, right? Because guess what? Disney has deep pockets. We have pockets, but they're not as, big as Disney, all right? The third, Disney's been in the business for a long time, right? They probably have the best of the best. We have to kind of find some place we can find that talent that Disney has and bring it over here. That's why they kind of had to go straight to the top to these established actors and, the Kevin Costners and Penny Marshall, all these folks that are directors / actors, but know the business and know the game. They could go right in there without having a learning curve about how do we make movies, how do we create content and that kind of thing, right? And so you have to understand the business strategy and the business approach in order to properly set up your HR, your staffing, okay? All right, so identifying keys to success in the labor market, all right? So labor market is always a tricky thing because it's steady, but at the same time, it can be very painful for companies because there's a lot of cultural things that affect the labor market. All right, there's a lot of societal things. There's a lot of things that just are just kind of like let's say for instance, right? Abortion, right? That's a big deal now, right? Abortion ban. How do you think that impacts companies?
Their, healthcare they provide,
Okay,
that they won't pay for abortions, not pay for abortions.
okay,
Might have to tear people from the company, they,
gotcha. Yep. What are you gonna say?
Well, also contraceptives too,
Say that again.
contraceptives.
Gotcha. Okay, yep. May provide contraceptives or they do, but the funding piece, is that what you're saying?
The funding piece, I know like, at major college campuses.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
They have condoms.
Right,
In
right.
the dormitories, that
Okay.
don't have female, birth control.
Yeah, okay, yeah, makes sense. That's a good point.
Well, it's like companies like Chick-fil-A where they use religion as their marketing little
Mhm.
gimmick. But things like abortion is seen as anti their religion,
Right,
but they have employees who are going to get abortions and it's
Right.
like, that's not against our policy, so.
right. Okay, so those are all good points, right? And when you talk about hiring someone who doesn't necessarily align with your values or your morals, right? And trying to figure out, okay, how do I navigate this space in which I don't necessarily believe in abortion, and we'll just stay with Chick-fil-A, right? Because Chick-fil-A is a Christian-based company, right? That's why they close on Sundays and that kind of thing, right? And they're private also, which makes a difference. Okay, they're not publicly held, so they don't have to, do certain things. They don't have any certain requirement they have to fulfill for the government and for the public because they're not dealing with public money. All right, they don't get any money from the government, they don't get any money from us, so they don't have to tell us what they do, right? They can kind of run their own show, right? But when it comes down to the labor market, right, and understanding, okay, I need to hire folks out of the labor market, right? How are they gonna feel about a company or coming to work for a company that doesn't necessarily believe in women's reproductive rights, right? Or doesn't believe in LGBTQ, or doesn't support that, or doesn't support diversity in the workplace, right? How does that affect recruiting? How does that affect them, hiring folks, right? And so, go ahead.
Like it's, when Tesla was building their new battery factory in Reno, I was, in talks of starting their engineering department.
Okay.
And right when it happened, had a couple of friends that worked there and I was hearing talks about, major like discrimination lawsuits. So they were getting a lot of people, they were struggling filling that position because of that discrimination.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big issue, or like word of mouth and your reputation can be diminished or, kind of tarnished very quickly, right? So it's important that companies try to get ahead of that, especially when it comes down to recruiting and trying to get the talent, okay? Because people will not go to work for a company that they know isn't aligned with what they think, right? Their values and that kind of thing. Right? So if you work for Tesla, you kind of know, hey, this is kind of how Elon Musk thinks and what his political views are, right? And it's a lot different than it was back in the day. Companies are more involved in the political landscape and more of the social issues because they kind of have to be at this point because of CSR, corporate social responsibility. And so companies have to adhere to certain things, right? Because now we're holding them accountable for the things that they do to the environment, that they do to society. That's why Mark Zuckerberg is at the Capitol Hill every other month testifying. TikTok, is testifying, trying to keep their business here in the States intact, all right? All these companies are trying to make sure that they're seen as good benefactors or good, contributors to society, okay? But that has a huge impact on the labor market because I may not want to work for your company because of how you think, or you're gonna, invest $45 million to a political campaign, all right? I may not roll with that, or you're gonna invest $20 million to another campaign, whether Democrat, Republican, whatever the case may be. I may not necessarily believe in that, right? Secondly, some of the views that we have in society is compared to what companies think, right? They may contrast, right? So for most of us here, maybe, right? We believe in global warming and climate control and all that stuff, right? We see kind of the impacts based on the scientific evidence. We see some of the impacts of what's going on with the diminishing of the ozone layer and UV rays and temperature, the weather pattern changing and things like that, right? For companies, this is a headache and a half. Okay, they hate this climate control stuff. They hate this global warming stuff. Okay,
And
I
that's
want to
it.
say something, Professor. I am Maria. I want to say that maybe talking about abortion could be treated the same as religion, or when someone decides to, in my case, to be feminist. And I think there are many reasons why women need to abort or take that path. And is the same way as I see the situation is the same way if I decide to change my religion. So I think companies shouldn't discriminate anyone for taking that personal decision. That's what I believe.
yeah. Okay, no, that's a good point. And that's why we have the protected classes, and that's why we have, you know, all the laws, because we don't want people to be discriminated and prejudiced against because of their religion, political affiliation, or any of that, right? That has nothing to do with the equality of work that you're doing, or just your contribution to the company, right? So it doesn't matter if you're purple and you wear a hijab and whatever the case may be, right? It doesn't matter, right? It's a good point, right? But the labor market itself, is really, you know, finicky, all right? And it looks one way, but is actually, you know, another way, right? Our unemployment rate, I think, is like 2.3, 2.4%, I think, which is pretty low, right? Which is pretty good, okay? And so with that, there's many jobs that, you know, out there, right? The problem with that is that the jobs that are out there, as we spoke about earlier, people aren't qualified for, right? That's why we have an abundance of tech jobs, an abundance of nursing jobs or healthcare jobs, right? Because we aren't qualified for it. People don't want to go to school for it. The amount of time it takes to understand some of these things, it really is a passion and not necessarily just something you could just pick up and be like, okay, I'm gonna try this. You have to really have the aptitude and the cognitive ability first thing for some of this stuff, and then the other stuff is, you know, passion wise, it's just difficult, okay? So, labor market plays a huge role, all right? Now, the difference between quality and quantity, we kind of talked about that already. I'm not gonna belabor that point too much. Time between, limits of time and money for recruiting. Recruiting probably, you know, they have a budget, but it's probably one of the more liberal budgets you'll find in a company, okay? Recruiting have a lot of resources, a lot of money, because leaders understand that that is really the heart of our existence. If we want to continue on for the next 50 to 100 years, we have to think about the future, right? And this is where HR comes in something called succession planning, right? And succession planning basically just kind of lining out or outlining who's going to take over next, okay? So I have a group of 100 interns coming in, right? The CEO is, you know, been a CEO for a while, and CEO is whatever, 60-something years old. Eventually, the CEO is gonna go, and we have somebody else ready to go, but who's gonna be in charge of the company in 20 years? It's gonna be somebody down here. It's gonna be one of you guys, all right? That's starting off at the company, depending where you're starting off, 10, 15 years, you may be a CEO, okay? Let's just take, for instance, even though this is not necessarily apples to apples, right? Just take the vice presidential candidate for President Trump, right? JD Vance, okay? Anybody know his background, his history?
He started off as, well, he was reporting with the worked his way into school, and then he went into investments, right?
Okay, yep, close enough, right? So basically, he grew up somewhere in West Virginia,
Ohio, somewhere.
something like, yes, in Ohio, yeah, Ohio, actually, in the mountains, and, you know, he wrote that book, and then that turned into a movie last year. It was a pretty good movie. But then he joined the Marine Corps, for 4 years, and he got out, went to school, then he went to Yale Law School, and then he got hired on by one of the big tech companies in Silicon Valley. And he got really cool with the owner of PayPal, right? And ever since then, any job he's gotten, he just, hey, I need a job. Hey, hire my boy. Hire him. And he's gotten hired. He's basically moved his way up that way, right? And then he wrote the book, turned into a movie, so he got popular via that, and he got elected to the Senate. And then he's been the senator for a whopping year and a half, and now he's the vice presidential candidate. Okay? I think he's 37 or something like that, right? Great, all right? No succession planning in that whatsoever, okay? No hierarchy, right? No experience, right? Just kind of moved up based on people you know, right? Most companies don't do it that way, right? Most companies, they start to look at people from the very onset of what's going on, right? You come into the company, we start to check for you, see what kind of aptitude you have, how well you work with others, what are your reviews and evaluations look like, and then they just see how committed you are to the company, and you start to slowly move up, right? And as you start to move up, you'll start to see the cohort that comes in get smaller and smaller, start to shrink, right? So You came with 100 other people. In a couple of years, it'll be 50 of you guys. Couple of years, it'll be 20. Couple of years, it'll be 4 or 5, all right? And out of that 4 or 5 folks, one of you might make it to the C-suite, okay? But that's a whole process that takes 25 some odd years, right? It takes a long time to become a successful CEO, right? And so we have to expose you to certain things, okay? You have to expose you to budgets, all right? How do you manage a budget, all right? Anybody here manage any big budgets? What's the biggest budget you've managed?
Like 3 mil.
3 mil. Anybody? Nobody's managing a big budget here? Assets, what about management of assets? That counts too.
Oh, God.
Knox, no?
In the billions,
Who's that?
in the billions.
In the billions, right? Yeah. So you have to be exposed to that and how to manage assets, how to manage money, right? Most important, how to manage people, right? You have to learn how to follow first before you can lead, right? And so all that stuff goes into play when we're really talking about, you know, how do we build the future, right? How do we build the future leadership for this company to propel it down the road to make sure that it's around the corner or down the road 100 years, whatever, we're still around, okay? But you know, it's about the amount of money I have, which again, like I said, recruiting has a lot of, and the time. Okay, recruiting definitely has a lot of time, but it's all relative because I may have a particular project or position that I need to fill immediately. Other positions that open, they stay open. Some positions, you know, I'm gonna hire for, you know, 4 or 5 months and that kind of thing, right? But a lot of it is really correlated to money, right? How much money do we have to spend this particular year? And somebody had said something about the fiscal year, was it? Yeah, the fiscal year. So, and then the fiscal year, really, you'll start to see this big push because anybody that manages budgets knows that if you don't spend it, guess what?
Bigger bonus.
They're gonna take it away from you, all right? You're gonna have budget. If you have $1 million budget for the year, you better spend $1,001,000. Okay, because if you don't, guess what? If you spend 900,000, oh, I guess you just need 900,000. Next year, your budget will be 900,000. Okay, so end of the year, usually fiscal year, they'll start cranking out people, start hiring people for no good reason, just to kind of make sure, hey, we exhausted the budget. Okay. There's still quality hires, we just, you know, kind of did in a rush, in a panic, sort of, right? To get things going, all right? What time is it?
6:30, 6:40.
6:40, okay, cool, still got time, all right. Understand how business strategies impact how and where to recruit, all right, so. This is an issue that, specifically for HR, that you're gonna run into, but it very much depends on where you're at. Right, so for instance, here in San Diego, probably not hard to find a particular person to do a particular skill set, right? But if you go to the Midwest in certain towns, or even small towns here in California, right? You'd be hard pressed to find a gynecologist, obstetrician, or a psychiatrist, okay? So guess what? We need a town doctor. We don't have one. We need a doctor for the town, right? So we're going and doing a national search because there's nothing within the 25, 50, even 100-mile radius of where we live at as far as doctors go, right? If you live in certain places and you need to go see the doctor, it may be a few hours drive, right? And so companies, you know, have a dilemma when they try to get talent in and they don't have it resident within their geographical area, right? And this is where we go to other countries to outsource, right? To kind of get folks that we need with the proper talent, proper skills, all right? So for those that are unaware, right? For the most part, right? India has a huge population of tech savvy folks, okay? India is like the hub of technology, right? You want an engineer, you probably should go to India and get a competent engineer, right? AI, machine learning, it's very, very, a lot of Indian folks are in that particular field, right? Because they know it, they understand it. It's a huge push in the country, right? To build economically, to build them up, to get them going. And it's very successful, it's worked, right? And so a lot of companies you'll see, will go to other countries to go get that talent, right? Because they have the requisite pool here, right? As much as we whine and complain about, immigrants from Mexico coming and taking jobs, what kind of jobs are they taking? The question. Right. Jobs people don't want, right? Meaning whatever it is, right? Jobs people don't want, they're low paying, right? What's that?
High labor intensive.
Right, labor intensive, right? They're not jobs people necessarily are dying to get now. Those jobs are probably the most critical to our economy, right? Because those little things that we don't think about, we have to get people to do them, right? Who collects the trash? Right? Trash, people may not make a whole bunch of money here per se, but in New York,
Make a lot.
They make a lot.
Those
yeah.
jobs.
New York, a garbage truck driver can six figures easy, 150. I know one, he's making $200,000 a year. He's a garbage collector. Okay, those jobs are pivotal, right? Because they're those little convenience jobs that we don't think about, but let your trash sit in your house for about a week. You'll think about it real quick, okay? So when we're out there, trying to find the talent, sometimes it's not as easy. So we have to kind of go out and expand our search. But again, that goes back to how much money do we have, right? Imagine I find a doctor or a professional that I need, but they're in China. Okay. That's great. I found you, but I got a family too, right? How big's your family? Well, it's just China, so it's just one of us. Just my wife and a kid. Okay. China, how much is it gonna cost to get this person in the United States? China's gonna look at the United States, and but the problem is that no, you can't have her. You can't have her. All right, just cause we don't really like you. You coming in here and taking our talent away. All right, you don't want to give us anything. Okay, and there's no contribution. That's
Can't they run away? Wait.
run away from China.
Yeah,
Are you trying to run from China before?
no.
Okay, it doesn't look like it's easy. All right, I mean,
Not as bad as North Korea.
yeah, I mean, these countries I'm talking about are very, they're extreme and they have different, rules and regulations for traveling outside of the country. So it's just different. It's not like here, we kind of get into this mindset, like, we can just pick up and go anywhere we want, right? Well, we can, right? It's not like that in China. It's not like that in North Korea. They track everything. You move in left, they know.
There's still rules for when we leave too, because we gotta come back like once a year to reestablish our
Right.
citizenship.
Yeah, depending which country you go to, you can only stay for 90 days. Or 6 months, at a pop, you gotta go, you gotta leave the country. And then reapply for your visitor's permit, all right? Unless you go apply for a work visa, but that normally means citizenship, so it's a whole different ballgame, right? It's the same thing, just that we have somewhat porous borders, to a certain degree. It's not the same as Europe, but it's a little different, right? But those countries, what they don't want is with something called brain drain. Okay, they don't want everybody in China who's educated, who's contributing to the society to leave to go to another country to contribute here, right? And not give anything back. Okay, if you look at, and this has happened a lot of times with Chinese and North Korean, even South Korean actors or singers, right? There's a couple of them that have kind of disappeared, right? There was a skater or tennis player last year and a half ago. She disappeared, okay? And come to find out, she's in China, right? But they took her from here, and then they took her. She went to go visit China. They wouldn't let her leave, basically. They wouldn't let her leave, right? Because well, let's get something even more relevant, right? Everybody knows Shakira,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so Shakira lives here in LA or whatever the case may be. I think for the most part, Miami. Okay, Miami, close enough. That makes more sense, right? So she's in Miami, but she's had a huge tax bill
In Spain.
in Spain, right? They were gonna put her in prison because she didn't pay her taxes, right? But wait a minute, she's here, right? She's working here, right? She should be, she's paying taxes here too, right? But they want her to pay taxes in Spain also because she's a Spanish citizen, right? So you see how that could become an issue for her, especially the amount of money she makes. I think they wanted $20 million from her or something like that in back taxes they're gonna put in prison. So they kind of worked it out. A few of the athletes had this issue. The international athletes had this issue. Countries don't like to give up their assets, okay? They, even if the country is one of these countries that, human rights violators, all this other stuff, they don't like giving up their people because they don't want to see the Chinese person who's killing it here, contributing to all this stuff for the United States. Meanwhile, their home country is suffering without their talents, sort of, right?
It's kind of funny though, because isn't China going through like a massive unemployment?
Yes.
now?
Mhm.
There's like,
China's having a lot
I
of
think the bank went
trouble, right?
bankrupt today. Like, it was a story that the banks went bankrupt out there.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. The housing is above, it's gone. The housing is, China has the most, vacant homes in the world. They have cities, whole cities that are like deserted. Beautiful,
Crazy.
huge houses, just, yeah, they literally built the cities thinking that, going with this big boom, man, China's, they're second now, manufacturer in the world, right? Second biggest economy is after the United States, and they just kind of lost that. They were the biggest economy for a while. They just lost that this year. So now they're the second biggest economy. And so they had all these homes built, right? Thinking people were gonna be prosperous and, the young folks are gonna move out to these cities and, didn't work out that way, okay? Because their economy is starting to break and bend because some of the policies they have, specifically, they're getting away from the one-child policy. They're getting away from some of the policies on tariffs and other things that they have with their trade agreements, right? So they're not in a position to go back and forth with the United States. China, most of China, or not most, but a lot of it is still rural. People are still farmers. They're still, growing rice and stuff like that, right? But here in the United States, a very small percentage of our folks do any of that, right? Milk, cows, we have a very small agrarian faction in our society. So our, basis of living or the way we do things is not, it's not gonna be totally devastated if there aren't a bunch of farmers, or if we get to tax the farmers really heavily, right? It'll reflect on the prices for us, but the farmers will take a beating. But we do things in the government that make sure that, hey, the farmers are taken care of, and, we toss milk and all this other stuff and have agreements with Canada and all this other nonsense, right? But we have a country like China, who a majority of folks, that's how they live, by farming. You got a problem if you start to, hit that industry, right? Because that's how they make their living. They're not necessarily all manufacturers. The only reason China's the second largest manufacturing hub in the world is why. Not the only reason, but the main reason.
They don't have any rules on pollution.
They got no rules. They build whatever you want, whenever you want, or whatever it takes. We don't care if it takes 100 pounds of coal. We're gonna make this little toy truck. Okay, they don't care about that, right? And so because of that, they can afford, to do business with other people. And there's another thing that China has that most countries don't have, except for maybe India.
No,
Population.
What's that?
Population.
Population,
oh,
right? I think India probably has the largest population in the world, right? China's second, right? They have huge amount of labor, right? So everybody's vying for the little job they can find, right? Doing whatever, so you don't need to pay them a whole lot of money, okay? I can pay them $2-3 a day, and they're fine, right? The living standards over there, for the most part, globally, right? How much do you think most people live on a day?
Less than $1.
Less than $1, right? Globally, right? Most people live on between $1 to a day, right? I know it's hard to understand that or probably comprehend that because here in the United States, $1 to $2, you can't buy anything, okay? You can't even walk in this building, right?
yeah.
And people are living on that,
Yeah, we pay our virtual agents $3 an hour.
yeah, right? And so you see that the difference as to why, you know, their labor market is a little different. But when you look at the labor market and trying to snatch their talent away, this is what irritates them. Okay, because it's like you keep taking these particular assets we have and you're trying to make them your own, right? And it manifests itself in ways that you don't think about, right? So what's happening, what's starting this week?
Comic-Con?
Mass Africa.
Oh.
Let's think big. What's happening this week? What's starting this week or next week, whenever it is?
Oh, Olympics.
The Olympics,
Oh,
Oh.
right?
that's
Olympics.
just, oh, it is
Yeah.
this year.
This one.
Olympics starting this week or next week, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Olympics is a very unique organization to look at, especially when it's the Olympic year, right? Because when you see the different teams and the different, you kind of have to look at it from an HR lens, right? And saying, okay, let's just take, for instance, I'm just gonna use basketball because I'm familiar with basketball, right? Some of you might know who Joel Embiid is, some of you might not, okay? Joel Embiid is a basketball player, he plays for the 76ers, he's like 7'2", real cool guy, I think he's Nigerian or something like that, I can't remember, right? Cameroon, I don't remember it before, but real cool guy, I met him a couple of times, super cool dude, humongous, right? But he's playing for the United States. But he's African. How do you think Africans feel? How do you think Africa feels?
What's that?
Upset, right?
Yeah.
Here you go. We got a superstar that came to the United States when he was 16, right, to pursue basketball. And instead of playing for his national team, he's playing for the United States. Okay? And this happens at every level. Corporate America, Olympics, fashion, movies, right? People just want to come here because of an opportunity, right? But that doesn't mean it bodes well for them as far as their parent country, their home country, right? Because the home country gets upset about that, right? And so all that is stuff you have to take into consideration when you're thinking about, okay, I have a position to fill and I'm trying to source it, right? I may find a person, but I may well not be able to get them because I gotta go through the government to get them. Then after that, they have a family, I gotta pay for the family to relocate, all right? Kids, the wife, and here in the United States, we're not big into extended families, but in other countries, there's grandma, grandpa, aunts, uncles, they all living in the same house. Guess what? I move, they gotta move too, okay? So guess what? I need to bring all of them. Maybe not right now, but eventually, I'm gonna have to bring all of them, right? So think about that company, right? And companies will facilitate that if the person is worth it, all right? If the person is worth whatever it is that they're looking for, it has what they're looking for, they will do that, okay? The other thing with that is that when you bring somebody over from overseas, there's a cultural shock aspect of it, right? It's just different. Doesn't matter. If we were to go to another country, there's a culture shock. It just operates differently, right? And so that person has to come in and not only, God forbid, that is a language barrier, right? Or different language, depending on what they're doing, right? It may be an issue for them. So technically, science and math, fairly, transferable, right? Easy to understand, math is universal, so you're okay with that, right? But if you're working in some other industry where you have to really know the nuances of the languages, right? And some of the slang and some of the more, what do you call it?
Dialects.
Dialects, yes, thank you, right? The dialects of certain areas and regions, right? Colloquialism, right? You have to understand those things, right? It's hard for somebody to come from a different country and really grasp that stuff very quickly, all right? Yes, sir.
The funniest thing was, when I was growing up, Honda, they built a new factory in Alabama. To get everyone caught up, they brought a lot of people from Japan down to train everyone. But it's a bunch of rednecks from Alabama trying to listen to, and then they're trying to translate to the, and it was just a shit show. So they had to get a bunch of interpreters and it was, yeah.
I see.
It's just, it's hard. So you have to worry about that as someone bringing in, someone from a different country and understand how am I going to assimilate them into not only the company, the organization, but their outside life, right? And you have to create an environment for them where they're comfortable right? You don't want them going, they're moving here and then like, oh, I found a place, where'd you find it? Oh, I think they're down at Barrio Logan, down at Skyline or something like that, right? If anybody's from San Diego knows about Skyline and it used to be really terrible, right? Crips and Bloods and all that stuff, gang banging down there, right? And that's where you go move, cause you don't know any better, right? You think it's a safe neighborhood, you get there and next thing you know, pop, 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 you're like, what's going on around here, right? No idea. So those things really come into play, really when we're looking at, hiring folks on and trying to make sure that we understand not only the labor market, but understand, okay, how does money and time and those kind of things relate back to us recruiting folks? Okay, bringing folks in, making sure we have folks that are gonna actually add value to the company, but make sure we take care of them at the same time, right? We just can't let them falter. It's easy for domestic, applicants to come in, except when they're going overseas. Right? We send other people overseas from here. That's another whole vetting process that we have to go through, right? But we'll get into that later on. All right, let's take a quick, what time is it?
6:57.
Let's take a quick 10 minutes. Let's make it 5 minutes so we can get on with it. All right?
And then I just left SY West.
Okay, my homie just got back from Afghanistan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he just got back in, and two of the homies just got back from Alaska early.
Alaska? Okay, nice.
All right. Um. So assigning and recruiting responsibility as far as, how it's done, okay? Now, depending again on the resources that the company has, they could very well do recruiting internally, right? I mean, they have a recruiting team. That's part of the company and that's all they do and they go out and they recruit people, okay? Most companies have one or two people like that. But a lot of companies, what they do is they hire other recruiting companies. Right, that's what they do, like headhunters sort of, right? Has anybody here ever dealt with a headhunter? Yeah, how was that experience?
I used some of them get hired and, they set up like a hiring conference. I
Mhm.
had 10 interviews in one day, but I almost got arrested, so I didn't killed after interviews.
I actually pulled up their classified documents.
Okay, all right, that happened. So these companies will use, other third-party recruiting companies to help them go out and find and source, viable candidates. Because again, it's expensive, it's time-consuming, and there are lulls and periods of time when if you have a whole recruiting entity within your organization, they're really not doing anything. They kind of sit around, it might be high now and then they just kind of fall off, they just kind of kicking it, they'll go out and say they're doing certain things and they're just goofing off, right? Or there's a lot of it that has to do with, if you have an internal recruiting apparatus, there's a lot of costs that's associated with it. So again, you may very well say, you know what, we're gonna offer the potential candidates some, we're gonna show them a good time. Right? Oh, hey, I got tickets to what you would call it, 50-yard line to the Chargers game in LA. We'd like to take you. Okay, right? Or some show, whatever the case may be. None of that is legal. I mean illegal. It's all legal, right? And so, but that starts to add up. Okay, that starts to cost money for the company, all right? So basically you're recruiting, but at the same time, you're partying at the same time with your clients, and you gotta be careful about how much you party, and that kind of thing, right? So a lot of companies will hire third-party organizations to do the hiring for them. Like, hey, this is what our requirements are. Please look for somebody like that, 3 or 4 preferably, and then send them my way. And then we'll decide which one we want to talk to. Okay, yes, sir.
This kind of funny, I work for a company called Highberry, which is, like a smaller Booz Island.
Mhm.
And, our HR just sent out emails just yesterday, asking us to like scatter blast, like do recruitment postings to like,
Yeah.
our social media
Yeah.
funds, so access or proof for them essentially.
Okay, yeah, that's a practice that a lot of companies do, right?
Yeah,
What,
referrals.
yeah, what did they, I was gonna say, did they give you anything as far as like you bring somebody in and you get a
I
referral?
remember the theme of, I
Okay.
saw yesterday,
Okay,
sure there's something like that.
yeah, there's a lot of companies that do that. Most big companies do that because they figure, if you work here, and you have friends that wanna work at the company or whoever, that are like-minded, like-skilled, so, depends. Like I have a friend, he was for Accenture, and matter of fact, he asked me if I wanted to come work there. I said, I don't care, put my application in, because I don't, whatever. And but if Accenture hires me, he gets $10,000. So, yeah, same thing I said, so, what, get 10 grand, which is great, right? But they have to hire you.
They
Okay,
have to work there for a certain period of time.
yeah, yeah, there's a probation period and that kind of thing. I think it's 6 months. After 6 months, they get to go, right? Yeah, that's fast, right? But you see what kind of money they're offering, right, as an incentive to the referral, right? The person who's referring, that's not even the person that's actually getting the job, right? And so companies have a lot of tactics that they use in order to alleviate sometimes the recruiting problem that they have, because they may not have a full-fledged recruiting team. They may not even have a third party on contract. They may just rely on employees, and depending on how big is your company.
About 200 employees.
Yeah, so if you got 200 people spreading the word, right? At least 5 or 6 people they know, at least, if you're talking about, what's that whole term about,
Like 7 degrees separation.
7 degrees separation, right? For the most part, most of us about 4 or 5 degrees separation away from the president, right? And that's the reason, that's scientifically, that's what they say, right? Which, it makes sense. All right, so you have 4 or 5 people in your network out of all your friends that they potentially could come work at Accenture. They want that, right? That's at least 1,000 people that are gonna know about Accenture or know about Adobe or whatever company you work for, right? Instead of us pumping money into these third-party recruiters or having a recruiting team, we will incentivize our incumbent employees. Who's a better spokesperson than the person working there, right? Now, unless the company is horrible and the person's not happy, you probably don't want that, right? But at the same time, whoever the candidate is will get an honest assessment of the company. And they'll come into the company eyes wide open, not expecting this, but getting that, right? Whoever is working there is gonna tell them like, look, it's stressful, we got our days, we got some really great people, we have some not great people, right? The pay is great, the hours are great, some people are not that great, but all in all, I'm happy, right? So that gives the person who's coming in an idea, okay, what kind of environment am I going into? And is it worth the money that they're gonna pay me? Right? Is it worth that? Is it worth the trouble? Because if you get a referral, for the most part, you probably got a leg up over everybody else. Right? Referrals usually have a leg up, right? With my friend, he's like, you don't worry about all that other nonsense. Like you're in the running, you're cool, right? You kind of go to the top of the list because you got referred, right? Which is another thing that companies like, because again, I'm expecting birds of a feather that flock together, right? If you work this way and you work for the company who hired you, we want to hire all your friends and your family and your cousins and whoever else we think could add to the company, right? We don't let them go, and we're gonna give you a nice little chunk of change, right? 10,000 is a little much. That's the most I've ever heard. But usually it's in the thousands. They as far as referrals go, usually, or it's something, some kind of other incentive, some kind of trip, or I've seen trips. We've given away time off. We've done a couple of different things, right? But again, going back to, hey, how do we get the talent in there? What do we need to do to get it in, right? Do we need to hire a third party to do it, right? To kind of canvas not only domestically, but internationally, right? Internally, right? Are we doing a search internally too? That's the other thing about recruiting. That in many aspects, when you have an external recruiting mechanism, there's no internal recruiting happening. Okay, so all the internal recruiting is being done by the senior management, by the leaders, if they recognize the talent. Okay, so there may very well be a position that is available, but I'm not really checking for you as one of my employees, but you are looking at that job like, hey, I'd like to get that job, right? But you probably need the support of your boss and that kind of thing. You can still apply, but it's a little bit more difficult to manage the internal recruiting, right? Because most companies, they want to keep the hiring internal. Specifically promotions, right? We want to keep it in-house. If we can hire someone in-house to move them up, that's what we want. Because it helps the company as far as, okay, learning curve, people are familiar with the system, how things go. We have somebody that we don't have to worry about, we already vetted them, all right? It'll be, there's continuity, all right? This is why there's when you talk about the government, there's 2 sides of the government, all right? There's the military side and the civilian side. The military side is very transient. It's very, rotational. The civilian side, they don't budge, okay? Once you're in there, you're in there, okay? So, but that's there for continuity, because somebody has to be there that understands the system, has been there for a while, knows the rules, has established the procedures, and can explain it to everyone else coming in because they've been there the longest, right? Their experience. We don't like constant rotation. You don't want somebody coming into the job every 2 or 3 years in most positions, right? I want to keep you there for as long as I can and then move you up internally and not push you out, all right? But the military is different, we know that, and, but all in all, they still have a mechanism in which we have continuity based on the civilian side of the house, all right? And so these particular third parties, right? They may charge a fee, or they may take a portion of the contract, right? As I was saying before, as far as Booz Allen goes, they're more, I'll say the worst. The companies that really take advantage of it, the company you work for, what's it called again?
Highbury Defense Group,
What's your function there? Do you mind asking me?
my job there,
Yeah,
I'm a program scheduler,
okay,
so I just oversee different like skills for the Navy, for different programs.
okay, all right, but you don't do any of the hiring and that stuff? do you?
Hiring now.
Okay. But you get to see the contracts though, sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes.
I don't know about all the other companies, but I know Booz Allen, I know how they operate pretty well. And it's a big money grab. Right, these contracts are literally worth $500,000, but they'll hire somebody for 150, and then they keep the rest, okay? So-
CBRE too,
What's that?
CBRE.
Yep, yeah, CBRE, yeah, maybe, yeah, I'm not familiar with them, as far as the inner workings, but I wouldn't doubt it, right? And so, they got in trouble again with the government because they got, accused of, what you would call it,
Oh, price gouging.
yeah, price
Yeah,
gouging.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, they got, accused of price gouging, which they did. And they end up having to pay the government back a good amount of money, and also even worse, getting blackballed off the government's vendor list. You don't want to do that. Once you come off the government's vendor list, it's pretty much you're done. You're not getting any government contracts, all right? So they're in probation now. They're trying to, get themselves together, right? So companies use them. Sometimes they're advantageous, sometimes they're not. But really it's about, can you afford to have your own internal recruiting team? If not, are you willing to pay or outsource that particular function, and you have the money to pay for it, all right? And it usually turns out to be more of a cost savings for the company if they outsource it to let another third party do it, okay? All right, employment brand, we'll talk about that in a minute, employer choice. We kind of talked about it already, in looking at the company and the company image, right? And kind of the whole aspect of, okay, what's the perception of the company, right? Anybody ever heard anything about Apple or Google or working at Tesla before? How does anybody know what the general consensus is working at, let's just say, working at Google? What's the general consensus that you've heard about working there? What do people say?
It's high stress.
High
pressure,
stress, high pressure,
very fast turnaround.
okay,
A lot of good benefits, so.
not a good benefits, right? So Google, like any other, all the other tech companies, right? High pressure, high stress, they're looking for innovators and people that think outside the box, right? But they get paid very well, right? And I think I told you the story about going to Adobe in San Jose and walking in and thinking it was some kind of big headquarters or a big computer room. It just was the game room. As an incentive for the workers, right? But the perception of the company and how it's portrayed and how it's spoken of by, people that work there, right? Or even by the public is important, right? And they have an index that comes out every year, most desirable companies to work for, right? And that's all based on public perception and also workers' opinions, okay? Because who better to tell you how the company's running or how it is to work there than the people that work there already, okay? And so, we're really trying to make sure that the image, the perception, the brand that the company has stays intact in a positive way, right? We don't want it to be, diminished in any way, right? Like even something as simple, not simple, but something as like that happened this week, right? Everybody heard about the whole computer glitch with the airlines this week,
Yeah.
right? And so everybody's up and running except for which airline?
Delta?
Delta, right? Still kind of in shambles, canceled 125 flights from here anyway, right? And so this is starting to damage their reputation, right? And even more so now, the government is doing an investigation as to why is it all the other airlines are back up and running, but you are not? Okay, now Delta's been around for a long time, pretty solid reputation. Nobody thinks they're doing anything crazy, right? They just maybe been inefficient in that area, or maybe the team they have isn't as skilled as some of the other, teams that are around, right? But again, it's starting to take a bite out of their image, right? Which eventually is gonna take a bite out of their profits, right? Forget the fact that, hey, we just canceled 125 flights and there's new rules now that say, hey, you have to give all that money back immediately. All right, so 125 flights, each flight, what? Depending on the size of the aircraft, we're talking about 100, let's say 130, 150 people average, give or take. Of course, got planes with more people than that, but let's just say 150. And they pay the average $100 ticket, which we know that's not the case, right? It's millions of dollars, right? They did just lost in the blink of an eye, just like that, okay? Now, compounded with the fact that now you have people who aren't buying tickets because, hey, I don't want to buy a Delta ticket and then get stuck with a canceled flight that messes my plans, right? So now you have people not buying tickets now and probably not going to buy them in the future till they hear something different about Delta, right? Like, hey, they fixed the problem, they're back on track, yada, yada, yada. So the image is important to maintain because especially nowadays, people are more concerned about the experience and not necessarily the product or service itself, right? Did you enjoy the movie theater? Yes. Did you like the movie? No. I like the fact that the seats recline. I like the fact that I can order food and drinks from my seat. I like the fact that I was in the 4D or 3D IMAX. It was all good, but the movie was terrible. Okay. But they come back with experience because like, oh, you know what? I had a great experience. Movie sucked. Next time I get a better movie with this, it's gonna be really good, right? And so it's extremely important that companies maintain their image, maintain that perception of being a positive, high quality company that's providing a high quality product and service and giving you value for your money. Okay. All right. So core versus flexible staffing. All right. So core staffing, core workers, as far as compared to all the other workers, right? That's your mainstay, right? Those are your folks that are at the center of your labor force, right? And aren't going anywhere. They're usually full-time. They rate all the benefits and all that other good stuff, right? And then you get to different categories of other workers, okay? Flexible workers, contingency workers, part-time workers, all right? You get all these folks that, depending on what it is we're trying to do, depending on how much money we have, depending on the time frame, depending on this particular skill set we need, we will hire, fire, move, that kind of train, that kind of thing, these different folks, right? So there's different pockets of folks that we hire, right? So flexible workers, right, as needed basis. As someone mentioned earlier, right, flexible workers, you'll see them pop up holidays, all right? That we talked about last week. There'll be an uptick in the people that are working at Macy's or Bloomingdale's, right? Because a lot of people are coming in to buy stuff for Christmas. And so we need more sales attendants to cater to the folks that come in, right? The rush, right? Black Friday, right? There's a bump up in staff because we need people to make sure that, it doesn't go crazy, people do lose their mind on Black Friday. I don't know why. Start fighting over TVs and whatnot, microwave. But you need extra staff for that kind of stuff, right? Huh?
Those were the days.
Yeah,
You know about the one in New York, right? The
yeah,
Walmart?
yeah. I don't know parts of that. No.
Watch it.
The thing with, when you get flexible workers, part-time workers, and workers that are not your co-workers, there's always the issue with, are they motivated enough? Are they vested enough in the company to not do stupid things? Okay. And what I mean by that is, if I'm a part-time or flexible worker, I don't really care about the company long-term. If I'm here for a year, 6 months to a year, I'm probably not going to follow all the rules because I don't care. I'm gonna be gone, right? You guys are basically using me and then chucking me to the side, okay? And it's a very interesting, and this doesn't happen as much now, but it did happen a lot in the 60s, 70s, 80s, mostly the 80s, where there was a lot of bank robberies. Right? The 80s was notorious for bank robberies. Right? It was, I don't know why, it just was. And so a lot of bank robbers, they would just come in through the front door, ski mask and all that stuff, but many times they had somebody on the inside helping them, right? And that person usually turned out to be someone who was a part-time worker, a flexible worker, someone who wasn't full-time, was getting no benefits, right? Because again, they don't care about the company. They're not vested in the company. They're not vested in the longevity or, sustainment of the company, right? And so you're always on your toes from a leadership standpoint of how do I motivate these people? How do I keep them engaged? How do I make sure they don't steal everything, right? When I'm not looking, right? And those are all like very critical and very important aspects because they bleed into other things, physical security, right? It bleed into, theft prevention and just loss, right? On a regular basis, retailers lose, especially here in San Diego, right? If you live downtown, right, you know what I'm talking about, familiar with downtown and all the homeless folks. There's an Albertson that's down the street from my place. I live downtown. There's an Albertson that's down the street from my place. And I've seen this Albertson change internally from when I first moved here, when I first went into the Albertson to now. When I first got here, I went to the Albertson, it was like regular supermarket. You walk in, you get your card, boom, just go about your business. Now, you walk in, there's like a gate, there's 3 security guards, they all got guns, right? Yeah, and there's only one way in and one way out. And you can't just go like however you want, right? And now, before you can even leave, you have to scan your receipt for the gates to open so you can get out, right? That's the first thing. Secondly, if you want something and it's a perishable item or a very perishable item, guess what? Guess what's behind? One of these plastic glass things. So now you gotta call somebody.
Take forever.
That take forever to open the gate up for you, or to open the case up for you, right? What does that do to the store? When I have to take someone from register 5, who has the keys, or the manager, to go open the case that has the tequila in it, right? What does that do to the company? What does that do to the supermarket or the organization?
Slows down the production.
It slows everything down, right? Now, I gotta go from here to here to open it up for you. And I gotta deal with this customer who not really sure what they want, right? They just kind of see something like, oh, can I see that? Can I see that also? Can I see 10, 15 minutes later? You got a line going out the door, people trying to check out. But guess what? I'm over here dealing with Humpty Fred who doesn't know what kind of tequila or what kind of toy or what kind of dress or whatever it is that they want, right? And so that's a big problem for companies, okay? And so you'll see that there'll be changes that occur based on the fact of, look, we don't want things walking out the door, right? And we don't want our workforce to be part of that walking out the door type thing, okay? Now, not one of my finer moments, but I have a friend, right? We'll just call him a friend, right? And he was very, very adept at stealing things from the supermarket, okay? And he called me and said, hey, look, I have some alcohol, I have some bottles. I'll sell them to you for $10 a piece. So I'm like, well, I don't need that many bottles, first thing, okay? I'll take 1 or 2, right? And so I go get the bottles, and they're high-end bottles. I'm not talking about like, Jose Cuervo or something like that. I'm talking about high-end bottles that are $70, $80, $90, $100, something. I'm buying 8. Right? He was selling it for $10, right? I was just like, where are you getting this stuff from? You're not an alcohol distributor. You don't work for any company, right? He's stealing them from the store that he works for at. Okay? But he doesn't care, right? And there's a conversation I had with him because he's a good friend of mine, and just trying to get them get right, you know, just some people, their lives just end up in a certain direction. And so I was talking to him like, why? It's like, I don't care. They pay me minimum wage. I only work there part-time, not even, right? I don't like my manager. It's like a bunch of stuff. They don't care. They don't ever talk to me. They just, I come in, I punch the clock, I do my job, and then nobody says anything to me, I leave. So I have access to all this alcohol, so I take it because all they do is they write it off. Till they catch the person, they just write it off. Even if they catch the person, they just write it off. Right? What's that? They just write it off. They don't care. Okay? So you have to make sure that, you know, when you bring on these folks, understand like, hey, there's a level of care that needs to be, you know, given to them, right? You just can't treat them like they're just a number and like, oh, you're just only here part-time or just here for a little bit and we're gonna get rid of you, okay? All right, the only thing I really want to highlight here is this part here, the hire of temporary workers, individual full-time regular employment. So you'll find that many instances, if you go in for, excuse me, an internship or some temporary position, if you're really good and they want to keep you, they will keep you. They'll offer you a full-time position, right? Which is a good way for them to kind of check you out without necessarily committing to you fully. Say, hey, we'll give you this temporary position. You can come in and do your thing. And then they don't tell you that they're gonna hire you. They just say, hey, you got a temporary job. And then at the end of the period, when you're ready to go, that, hey, you know, we really liked you. We'd like to offer you a full-time position. Right? There was no recruiting really involved in it. I got an opportunity to observe the person in the workspace and see what kind of work they do. They added value to the company. They fit in, right? And so we want to keep them. So it's a good segue into getting access to talent pools when you offer temporary positions or internships or that kind of thing, right? At a lower reduced rate, less risk for the company. And it's, you know, everybody wins. You win, you get an internship or job, the company wins, they get a position filled, and potentially they can hire a full-time employee down the road. So it's always a good thing, right? They hire temporary workers. Independent contractors, you know, they're on their own, kind of, they have to handle their own things, right? Independent contractors come in, hey, you're gonna do X and we're gonna pay you Y. Okay, you're gonna do it in this time frame, and this is what we expect. And you take care of all your taxes, you take care of all your people, insurance, we don't deal with any of that, it's all on you, okay? And being an independent contractor, you might as well call yourself an entrepreneur, right? You own your own business, for most folks, that's what they do, right? It can be tedious, it can be a pain in the butt, right? If you don't know what you're doing, you can get yourself in a lot of problems, with taxes and all that, really. But for the most part, companies like to deal with them because I don't have to pay all this extra stuff. I just pay you for what you did and we call it a day, we part ways, and whenever I need you, I call you up. All right, it's kind of like, yeah, mercenary for hire, sort of, right? Call you up, hey, I needed something done. What's your quote? Cool, come on back in. We'll use you. And then you start to build repeat business, right? You establish a relationship, but it's a relationship with independent contractor. You're not on there, and it could be a long-term contract. It could be a contract that's 4 or 5 years long. You just don't get anything from the company. They just kind of, hey, they pay you, you do something, do a service, or provide a good, then you move on, okay? So that's always an interesting thing that a lot of people do. And again, companies can, you know, have a mix of all of them, right? We could have temporary, we could have full-time, we have, you know, part-time, and most companies do, right? Even here at the school, there's a full-time faculty, right? Or staff, I should say, right? None of the faculty is full-time. We're all part-time, right? All the instructors here are all adjuncts, part-time, okay? But we do get like 1 or 2 things because we have full-time hours, right? So there's a distinction there, right? A full-time, and I get full-time hours. I'm part-time, but I get full-time hours. All right. And so again, I don't rate any of the benefits, but as a favor to me, not necessarily a favor, but as something that will be beneficial to me, the company will go, okay, fine, we'll go on how you're part-time basis, but we'll give you full-time hours. right? But you're not gonna get paid overtime, any of that stuff. Right? You don't get any insurance, you don't get any of the benefits. We just gonna give you 40 hours and you're good, but you're not on the payroll. We don't have to pay any payroll tax really for you, which is the big deal, all right? Because the way payroll tax works is you pay payroll tax, so does the company to the government, all right? So if you know, your salary is 50,000, payroll tax is 10%, so that's 5,000, you'll pay 2,500, the company pay 2,500, and that goes to the government. All right, so for you that don't know, right, that's how they do it. It's pretty much matching, right? So this is why companies always have heartburn when they're hiring people. And if they don't hire them full-time, it's because they don't want to deal with the payroll taxes and all the other go with that, right? Giving you a bonus and all this other stuff. It's just more convenient sometimes to just hire you independently or make you a temporary worker or part-time, have you do the job, and then if we really seem like we need you, then we'll offer you a full-time position, right? As I mentioned before, I think week one, you know, I told you I used to work for Toyota. Toyota has 50,000 people that work for it, but only 5,000 are actually core workers, right? I was a core worker. I worked at the headquarters. I worked in, you know, in the analytics and business analysis department or section in Toyota and Lexus. But everybody else, they were contractors, right? Specifically the ones that we had, you know, worked in maintenance and that kind of thing, they were all contractors. The 5,000 that worked, that were co-workers, were admin folks that, you know, were kind of in the executive side of the house and administration and management, right? So you have a 50,000 employee organization with only 5,000 people that actually are full-time and rate benefits. A huge difference, right? Think about how much benefits that they're saving, right? As I told you before, Toyota is a profit sharing company, right? And so remember I told you when I got there, I had been there for about 3 months. It was like 3 or 4 months before Christmas. At Christmas, they always give out the bonuses, right? And I was there 3 or 4 months, and I got $5,000 or $6,000 as a bonus, right? My boss got, I think it was 40 or 50 grand as a bonus, right? Now imagine I had to give that to 50,000 people, advise 5,000 people, right? So they can do that. They can do these certain weird things because they only have a very small labor force really that they have to account for, right? They don't have to worry about the benefits for the 45,000 other people that work for them because they're all contractors. Handle your business, will give you a 1099. And you'll be 1099 is a tax form for those of you that aren't familiar. I'm sorry, keep tossing forms around. So you don't have to deal with all that, okay? And that's what they want because, again, the majority of the operating expense for any company is payroll. 75 to 80% is payroll. If I can minimize that, I can save myself some money. And that means more money for other projects, means more money for the C-suite. The CEO can, you know, get his $30 million salary and be happy. And then, you know, everybody gets raises across the board, and that kind of thing. So you need that, all right? All right, is it 7:30 yet? 7:38, man, once again, I've succeeded in my time. All right,
Take it off next last.
what's that?
Take it off next.
No, good try though, good try. All right, so again, look over the 2 PowerPoints, right? Chapters 6 and 7, excuse me, I think it is 6 and 7. Just over the PowerPoint, make sure you're good to go. There's nothing due this week. Everybody's familiar with who their group members are for the case study next week, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So if you don't know, go look. I can't remember exactly where you guys can see it, but find out who your team members are, reach out to them, make sure you coordinate when you guys are gonna do what, who's gonna do what, okay? Like I said, I'm telling you now, do not email me, text me, call me about, can I submit individually? I'm gonna tell you no. Okay, you're gonna get a 0 or a big fat F, because I said it now twice. All right, this is a group type project, collaboration. Okay, let's talk, let's figure this out. Okay, so get in there and figure it out. I will try to open up the actual week 5 so you can kind of take a look at it. But it's everything you need is right there. So that's why I'm hesitant to open it up because it's not difficult. It's just a matter of how you guys cross up the work and that kind of thing. Okay, so that's that. I will definitely have the tile justifications graded by the end of the week and back to you. And then that should be it until, next week, turn the case study. And then week 6, final paper draft. So start thinking about that, right? Again, with the draft, I'm not looking for a completed project. I'm looking to see how far you've gotten thus far. So whatever it is you do have, make sure that it's complete and is ready to go, right? Ready to be submitted type format, right? Don't give me an outline of an outline. All right, don't give me, something that's incomplete and just got, it's you brainstorming. It's not what I want to see. I want to see what you've done, complete up to that point, ready to go for submission, okay? Like I said, I'm not looking for the whole paper at all. I just want to see where you're at. Right, that's not due till week 6. Okay, but I'm just letting you know, so you know. All right, that's all I got. Any questions, comments, complaints? Yes,
We
sir.
got a learning engagement due tonight.
Yes.
The first one.
Yeah.
Because you said there was nothing to do this week, that's why I was like.
Oh, no, I don't count the LEs and the quiz, because those are
Oh,
constant. Yeah,
okay.
those are constant. Those don't, outside of the norm. Right? The only thing we got that outside of the norm is the case study and final draft paper and all those other things. Okay? Very good? All right, appreciate it. Thank you, and I will see you next week.
Yes, sir.
All right. Oh, he's not, okay, Tim. All right. I will make sure I get him for attendance.
Ross?
All right. Yes, sir. Ma'am.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about the week 1. You said you were opening it and I kept on checking, it wasn't open. For the comments, early comments.
I did open it.
Who's on the call?
I opened it, I opened it.
Okay.
I opened it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't even know this was.
All right, give me
Okay.
send me an email. I will open it again one more time for you, okay? One more, that's it.
Can we just agree if it's going to be open today or tomorrow? Or I should send the
I'm gonna
email?
open it today. I'm gonna open it today and it'll be open till tomorrow evening, okay?
Thank you. Early 1
Anybody,
for the comments.
was that LE1? Okay,
Yes,
got you.
I've
Okay.
done the assignment, but it's just to comment on the rest of the class. 2 people.
Okay, all right. All right, just send me an email,
Who's in our group 3?
okay?
Okay, I will.
All right, thanks, Kate.
All right, bye.
Good night.
For the learning, for the title justification,
Say that again, Kate?
the title justification, when I submitted, I saw that it was asking me to click a portion of it for group, for the group.
For the time justification?
Yes, when I submitted it, it showed me a place where I clicked to agree that it's a group work.
No, it might should show you the groups, but it shouldn't be asking for any group work.
Yeah.
Oh.
And it was like.
Let me take a look. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing that you have to submit for the title justification, so I'll double check and make sure everything's good, but you're good to go. As long as you submitted the title justification, you're all right.
Okay, I did.
Okay, good. All
All right,
righty.
bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, these are the board discussion questions.
Yes,
I missed the title justification.
get it in.
Yeah, I just saw it, I was like, wait, title justification, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I did, and then I missed week 3.
That was last week, right? Yeah, last week. Get it in. All right. Send me an email.
All right, I gotta send you an email too for the Python or R class. I still haven't.
You said, I gave it to you, right? Remember I gave you the SDC? Yeah, I sent you check your email. I sent you the link.
Oh,
Yeah, check your email.
all right, bet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, but send me an email for the other thing.
Okay.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
for me.
What you need?
Just the Let's
We're
move
right
on.
here.
They're
we're
learning
here,
each
so you
one
can read
for
it.
the second comment. They just made one comment.
Okay, send me an email,
Okay,
but it sounds like it's gonna be open, so you better get in there.
okay,
It's gonna be open till, I'm gonna open it tonight and it'll stay open till tomorrow.
okay.
At least one, right?
Yeah, I just need to make one comment.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
yeah.
thank
You're
you.
welcome. Maria, what's up? You got a question for me?
Oh, she's still in there.
Oh, no, thank you, Professor.
This your group?
Yeah.
Oh, Maria, this is your group here.
We just call her.
Yes.
Oh, you calling on the phone? Okay, they're calling you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, thank you.
All right, I'm gonna log off, okay? Unless you have a question.
Bye, thank you.
All right.
All right, bye.
I was giving a second.
Okay.